Back to British politics now, and energy bills in England, Wales and Scotland are to fall slightly from October to just under £2,000 a year for the typical household after the regulator Ofgem lowered the price cap. However, prices are still significantly higher than historical norms and could rebound again above £2,000 as soon as January. This is the Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, speaking this morning.
Actually, today's really good news for families up and down the country with a reduction in the energy price cap that's going to reduce, on average, a typical family's energy bill by about £150, easing the burden on the cost of living. But I know things are still tough, and that's why we are working night and day to bring down inflation so that the money in people's pockets can go further.
Well, let's speak now to John Penrose. He's a Conservative MP for Weston-super-Mare, who actually was the first person to call for an energy price cap in the House of Parliament. Hi, John.
Hi, Matt.
So it was your idea, the energy price cap. Is it still working?
I'm sorry to say I don't think it is. I mean, it did a very valuable job when prices were spiking. Not actually what it was originally introduced to do, but nonetheless, it really helped when the prices really started to go through the roof about a year and a half ago. But now I'm afraid when prices are falling, it's really not working anymore at all. And it's actually quite expensive. To run the price cap adds probably £150 extra to your bill and my bill and to all your listeners' bills as well. And as a result of that, actually, we're all paying a bit more than we need to if we had a different kind of cap.
Why does it cost so much to run the energy price cap?
Well, if you talk to the energy companies, they say that they have huge hedging costs to manage the risks of the cap, which wouldn't be there if the cap took a different form. And those hedging costs, those risk management costs that they all have to deal with, get ultimately passed on to you and me through our bills. And if you can design a cheaper cap, a better one that protects us from being ripped off by, if we don't switch and all those other things, then actually you can strip some extra money out of the bills which we currently have to pay.
Do you agree with the Prime Minister when he was speaking last week, when he was basically saying that most people didn't know that the government had spent billions and billions of pounds helping them with their bills? Do you think that's fair, that the government's not got the credit?
I kind of get his frustration because two things are true at once, aren't they? I mean, I think everybody or most people intellectually know that there's been an enormous amount of government help in all sorts of different schemes over the last couple of years. But still, everyone's bills are still much higher than they were before Putin invaded Ukraine, and so everyone's still hurting. So both those things are true at once. And I kind of get his frustration. I think that what is really the problem is that there's an enormous amount of cash being spent trying to help, but it still hurts, and that's the reason why people are still unhappy, in spite of everything that Rishi and other ministers have been trying to do.
I wonder if you think it's an enormous amount of money spent, not a lot of credit for the government. I wonder if actually with hindsight, you might think it might have been better if it had been more targeted, let the market do what the market does for most people, and then target actually just that money at the poorest people who are really struggling, and actually, bluntly, probably you and I could afford our energy bills. Would it have been better if it hadn't been this enormous state intervention in the market, particularly from a Conservative government?
Well, I mean, I'm one of the flintiest free marketeers you can think of, but I think that I kind of get why ministers did what they did at the time, because we were in the first pandemic for 100 years, and we're just coming out of it at the time, and the first war in Europe for decades and decades and decades, more than half a century. So I think that nobody quite knew what the situation was going to turn out as, but everybody knew that it hurt today and it was going to get worse. So I kind of understand it. Nobody's got a time machine and go back in time, but I do think that going forward, if we can reform the cap, if we can make some changes, then actually we can help people even more than we've managed to help them so far.
Just while I've got you, John, I know you're a former whip, so you'll be familiar with all of these things. During the course of this week, we've had three of your Conservative colleagues on the show. Caroline Noakes, Damien Green, Tom Hunt. They don't have much in common, I'd venture, those three. But they all did seem to agree that Nadine Dorries needs to get on with it and get out of Parliament, or even possibly have the whip withdrawn if she won't. What's your assessment on Nadine Dorries? What's your message to your colleague?
I think that I think she's left herself in a very difficult position because having said she's going to go and then not gone, I think she's through those comments she's made, just making it harder and harder for her to do her job as an MP. So I think she's got to make up her mind quite quickly and be clear with her constituents. And she's a good communicator, Nadine. She's been an MP for a while, and she needs to make clear to her constituents what she's doing and do it fast.
Would it just be better if she just got on with it and just resigned?
Well, one way or another. I mean, she's going to stay. She should stay. She's going to go. She could go. Please make sure everybody who voted for her and who she represents knows what she's doing.
John Penrose, really good speech. Conservative MP for Western-super-Mare. Thanks so much for joining us on the show at this lunchtime here.